working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, Malwang. Let's welcome to ASEAN in Focus on today's headlines. President Biden touts a free and open Indo-Pacific region in the recent U.S.-ASEAN summit with ASEAN leaders. The United States and leaders from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations said they would redouble their collective efforts toward a peaceful solution in Myanmar. And the Philippine consulate in New York announced that there were no Filipino casualties in the reported racially motivated mass shooting at a supermarket in New York that left 10 people dead on Saturday afternoon U.S. time. And this year, Europe Day coincided with the national elections in the Philippines. Celebrating a day earlier, the delegation of the European Union lit up the Rizal Monument in the colors of the EU flag, blue and yellow. First in our news, leaders from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, met President Biden. The U.S. President declared to Southeast Asian leaders that the relationship with ASEAN is the future, and the summit was aimed at shoring up trans-Pacific ties and countering China's heavy influence in the region. Let's listen in.
And the breadth of our discussions reflect just how vital the Indo-Pacific and ASEAN region are to the United States of America from our perspective. And a great deal of history, the great deal of history of our world in the next 50 years is going to be written in the ASEAN countries and our relationship with you. It's the future in the coming years and decades. The ASEAN centrality is the very heart of my administration's strategy in pursuing the future we all want to see. And I mean that sincerely. The Indo-Pacific is an Indo-Pacific that is free and open, stable and prosperous, and resilient and secure is what we're all seeking. Today, I'm announcing another $150 million of initiatives to deepen U.S.-ASEAN relations and achieve even better our shared objectives, from the Coast Guard to climate change to modern infrastructure. There's a whole range of things that we have to work on. And I'm also proud to announce that I have nominated one of my closest advisors to be U.S. Ambassador to ASEAN, Johannes Abraham. Discussions have covered a broad range of critical issues, including working together to keep up the fight against COVID-19, to take climate action, pursue a clean energy future, build a sustainable, high-standard infrastructure, and to expand access to education, enhance maritime cooperation. And the breadth of our discussions reflect just how vital the Indo-Pacific and ASEAN region are to the United States of America from our perspective. We're not only celebrating 45 years of partnership and friendship between ASEAN and the United States, we're launching a new era in U.S.-ASEAN relations.
The Biden administration is hoping to demonstrate a sustained interest in Southeast Asia after months focused on repelling Russia's invasion of Ukraine. President Biden took office saying that his top foreign policy priority would be the global competition with China, which has surpassed the U.S. as Southeast Asia's top trading partner and has been increasingly assertive on territorial disputes in the region. Chinese President Xi Jinping, at his own virtual summit with ASEAN last year, announced $1.5 billion in COVID aid over 3 years, while the U.S. is preparing a $40 billion package for embattled Ukraine. President Biden is expected to announce a broad Indo-Pacific economic framework when he travels next week to Japan, or this week to Japan and South Korea. In a related news, Vice President Kamala Harris announced that the U.S. will be providing $60 million in new regional maritime initiatives in the ASEAN region. Let's listen in.
As you all know, last year I decided to travel to Singapore and Vietnam early in our administration to demonstrate our commitment to Southeast Asia and to strengthen our partnerships in the region. I remain personally very focused on deepening our relationship with ASEAN and all of your nations. And I will once again make clear the United States has an enduring commitment to Southeast Asia, and we recognize ASEAN's centrality in the region's architecture. As an Indo-Pacific nation, the United States will be present and continue to be engaged in Southeast Asia for generations to come. Our partnership with ASEAN also directly affects the prosperity and security of the American people. On the issue of prosperity, resilient supply chains in Southeast Asia benefit American consumers. When global supply chains are flowing, more goods are available and prices, of course, come down. Southeast Asia is the fourth largest market for American goods, and our economic relationship supports more than 600,000 American jobs. We stand with our allies and partners in defending the maritime rules-based order, which includes freedom of navigation and international law. I also believe we must significantly grow our partnership with ASEAN as a whole. To that end, I am pleased to announce that the United States will provide $60 million in new regional maritime initiatives led by the United States Coast Guard. Among those initiatives, we will deploy to Southeast Asia a new cutter as a training platform. This is intended to benefit all nations in the region as we conduct multinational training missions to assist in building your capacity. We will also be sending additional personnel, including technical experts, to the region.
Now, as said earlier, the White House is trying to demonstrate that it is stepping up involvement in the Pacific, even as the administration has been focused on the war in Ukraine. The maritime initiatives are part of the U.S. commitment to more than $150 million in new projects to bolster Southeast Asia's climate, maritime, and public health infrastructure. And conspicuously not invited to Washington was the junta in Myanmar, which overthrew Aung San Suu Kyi's elected government last year, triggering a slew of U.S. sanctions. Take a look. A joint statement renewed support for ASEAN leaders' so-called five-point consensus reached in Jakarta in April 2021, which calls for a cessation of violence and constructive dialogue, despite criticism that little progress has been made. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman, on the sidelines of the summit, met with the members of the self-styled government in exile, as shown here, and that triggered a rebuke by the junta. The U.S. was practicing double standards by meeting with the NUG, which is working to overturn the coup and has been declared a terrorist organization by the junta, and that was said by this military spokesman, Zhao Mintun. He said, quote, "In the Asia-Pacific region, China is a powerful country. Our country is dealing with and having relations with powerful China and India. China is a major ally of the junta and has refused to label the military's power grab a coup. Last month, Beijing said it would help safeguard Myanmar's sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity, no matter how the situation changes." The United States and leaders from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations also said they would redouble collective efforts toward a peaceful solution in Myanmar. According to the U.S.-ASEAN Joint Vision Statement, they remain deeply concerned over the crisis in Myanmar, and they highlighted Myanmar's commitment to the ASEAN five-point consensus during the meeting on April 24, 2021. They quote, "We reiterate our commitment to peace and stability in the region and continue to call for the immediate cessation of violence in Myanmar and for the release of all political detainees, including foreigners. Hundreds of thousands of civilians have been displaced since the military coup toppled the democratically elected government of Myanmar." And take a look at this video shot by a fighter from ethnic rebel group Karenni Army, claiming to show an ambush on a Myanmar military convoy and the aftermath in Hiprusu Township in Kaya State on May 7. Take a look. Now, fighting has flared following a military coup in February 2021 as established ethnic rebel groups in border areas and People's Defense Forces across the country have sprung up to fight junta troops. Myanmar has about 20 ethnic rebel armies, many of which control swathes of remote border territory that have fought each other and the military for decades over the drug trade, natural resources, and autonomy. Some, including the Karenni Army, have condemned the ouster of Aung San Suu Kyi's government and offered shelter and weapons training to People's Defense Forces, or PDF, that have sprung up since the putsch. Last month, Junta Chief Min Aung Hlaing called for face-to-face peace talks with established ethnic rebel groups as the military struggles to crush newer anti-junta militias. Now back to the ASEAN summit in Washington. President Biden and the ASEAN leaders concluded the two-day special summit in Washington, D.C. on Friday. First, let's listen in.
The Indo-Pacific is an Indo-Pacific that is free and open, stable and prosperous, and resilient and secure is what we're all seeking.
Now, President Biden did not mention in his remarks, and the summit ended without a condemnation of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations has avoided public criticism of Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion. ASEAN operates by consensus, and views on Ukraine vary among the bloc, which includes countries with deep economic and military relations with Moscow, such as Myanmar, Vietnam, and Laos, and Singapore, the only one in the group to sanction Russia over the invasion. Others, including Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand, seek neutrality. Indonesia has resisted pressure to exclude President Putin from the November G20 summit in Bali. This despite President Biden's and other leaders' threat of a boycott of the summit. Now, before a meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi said they hope to see the war in Ukraine come to an end as soon as possible.
On the global issue, I would like to reiterate the very consistent of the principle of Indonesia on the importance of respecting territorial integrity and sovereignty of a country to another country. So this principle is upheld by Indonesia very consistently. Our hope is to see the war in Ukraine stop as soon as possible, and we give the peaceful resolution of a conflict a chance to succeed. Because we know that if the war continues, all of us will suffer. And finally, looking forward to welcoming you on the Foreign Ministers meeting of the G20 in July 2022 in Bali. So once again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Indonesia has invited Russian President Vladimir Putin to attend the meeting despite U.S. calls to isolate him. In a compromise, Indonesia also said it would also welcome Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the G20 summit. In today's other news, Finland and Sweden are ready to apply to join NATO in the wake of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Finland's president and prime minister made the announcement Sunday at a press conference. Take a listen.
Tänään tasavallan presidentin ja hallituksen ulkopoliittinen valiokunta ovat yhdessä linjanneet, että Suomi eduskuntaa kuultuaan hakee NATO-jäsenyyttä. On tultu pitkälle siitä, kun viimeksi tapasimme näissä merkeissä täällä linnassa 24.2. eli liki 3 kuukautta sitten. Paljon on tapahtunut. Tämä on historiallinen päivä. Uusi aikakausi aukeaa.
And the United States would strongly support a NATO application by either Sweden or Finland, should they choose to formally apply to the alliance. We'll respect whatever decision they make. And we've long supported NATO's open door policy and the right of all countries to decide their own futures.
Ally, Turkey has expressed some concerns, and as we always do in NATO, when there are concerns, when there are questions, we sit down, and I'm confident that we will be able to find a common ground, an agreement, consensus on how to move on the membership. Turkey has made it clear that their intention is not to block membership, and therefore I'm confident that we will be able to address the concerns that Turkey has expressed in a way that doesn't delay the membership or the accession process. We are ready to sit down with Finland and Sweden and also to address their concerns in this interim period. And as I said, this is partly about increasing NATO military presence in the region.
NATO membership needs to be approved and ratified by all 30 members of the alliance. Finland, which shares a 1,300-kilometer border with Russia, has been leading the charge, while Sweden has expressed concern about being the only non-NATO country around the Baltic Sea. Finland is also Sweden's closest defense cooperation partner. On Saturday, the Finnish head of state phoned his Russian counterpart, President Vladimir Putin, to inform him of his country's desire to join NATO. In a conversation described as direct and straightforward, Moscow has repeatedly warned both countries of consequences if they join NATO. President Putin warned Prime Minister or President Niinisto that joining would be a mistake since there is no threat to Finland's security, according to a Kremlin statement. The Kremlin said such a change in the country's political orientation can have a negative impact on Russian-Finnish relations developed over years in a spirit of good neighbor lines and cooperation between partners. In other news, the Philippine consulate in New York announced Sunday morning that there were no Filipino casualties in the reported racially motivated mass shooting at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. That shooting left 10 people dead on Saturday afternoon U.S. time. At least 10 people were killed inside this supermarket and in the parking lot, including a retired police officer who was working as a security guard. The 18-year-old police suspect is in police custody and is being investigated as a hate crime. His name is Peyton Gendron. He wore a tactical gear and live-streamed the whole shooting. Peyton Gendron was arraigned late Saturday on a single count of first-degree murder and held without bail. Buffalo Mayor Byron Brown said, quote, "This individual came here with the express purpose of taking as many black lives as he possibly could." Just hours later in California, a shooting at a church southeast of Los Angeles left 1 person dead and 4 others critically wounded, according to the Orange County Sheriff's Department. In Washington, President Joe Biden, whom the White House said would visit Buffalo on Tuesday, condemned the racist extremism and hate that remains a stain on the soul of America. Philippine Consul General Elmer Cato said there are about 540 Filipinos living in Buffalo. Meanwhile, the FBI said it is investigating the shooting that killed 10 people at the Buffalo, New York grocery store as a hate crime and racially motivated attack. Let's listen in to the reactions.
We are investigating this incident as both a hate crime and a case of racially motivated violent extremism.
He exited his vehicle. He was very heavily armed. He had tactical gear. He had a tactical helmet on. He had a camera that he was live streaming what he was doing. The individual exited his car and engaged 4 individuals. He shot 4 people in the parking lot. 3 of those were deceased. 1 individual at this time is surviving the injury. The individual went inside. As I said, he was an 18-year-old white male, walked into the store and began engaging customers inside the store. So as we said, a total of 13 people were shot today, 10 deceased at the scene, and 3 sustained non-life-threatening injuries. It appears to be non-life-threatening injuries at that point. 4 in total were store employees. One of those was the security guard who has worked at that location for a very long time. Many officers are on scene here knew him quite well.
We have suffered a mass shooting with multiple casualties and several people injured. This is the worst nightmare that any community can face.
It's crazy. Yeah, they go a lot of women shot up.
And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Ito yung second try ko sa Himigandog. Unfortunately, hindi siya nakasama sa top 10. Ini-imagine ko na sila Katniel yung kakanta nito. Pero it ended up being our debut single. And in span of 5 years, it was recorded by 2 other artists. Tapos naging soundtrack siya sa numerous TV shows and movies. So special din tong song na to.
Welcome back. Metro Manila and 85 other areas will remain under the lowest alert level 1 classification from May 16 till the end of the month. Malacanang announcing this Sunday night. Region 1, Luzon, Abra, Apayao, Kalinga, Mountain Province, and Baguio City in the Cordillera Administrative Region, Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, La Union, Pangasinan, and Dagupan City. In Region 2, Batanes, Cagayan, Isabela, Nueva Vizcaya, Quirino, and City of Santiago. In Region 3, Aurora, Bataan, Bulacan, Nueva Ecija, Pampanga, Tarlac, Zambales, Angeles City, and Olongapo City. Region 4A in Batangas, Cavite, Laguna, Rizal, and Lucena City. Region 5, Marinduque, Oriental, Mindoro, Romblon, and Puerto Princesa City. In Region 4B and Region Albay, Catanduanes, and Naga City. Region 8 in Aklan, Capiz, Guimaras, Iloilo, Bacolod City, and Iloilo City. In Region 6, Siquijor, Cebu City, Lapu-Lapu City, and Mandaue City. In Region 7, and Biliran, Eastern Samar, Southern Leyte, Ormoc City, and Tacloban City. Region 11, Zamboanga City. In Region 9, Bukidnon, Camiguin, Misamis Oriental, Misamis, Cagayan de Oro City, and Iligan City. In Region 10, Davao City. Acting Presidential Spokesperson Martin Andanar said the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases approved the new classification on Saturday. Also placed under Alert Level 1 during the same period are the following provinces, highly urbanized cities and independent component cities. Presumptive President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. said he was in favor of the Department of Education's or DepEd's request to give an additional 3,000 pesos allowance to all teachers and non-teaching personnel who served as members of the Electoral Board. In a letter submitted by DepEd Secretary Leonor Briones, she asked Commission on Elections Chairman Saidamin Pangarungan to give an additional 3,000 pesos to all the teachers who provided election services. Marcos stressed that the amount is justifiable, pointing out that the services and sacrifices they provided were actually unquantifiable. He also expressed hope that the compensations, honoraria, and other allowances of all teachers will be given before May 24, as stipulated in COMELEC Resolution number 10727. He also expressed his gratitude to the hundreds of thousands of teachers, poll workers, and volunteers who took to the front lines in ensuring the peaceful, honest, orderly, and credible conduct of the historic May 9 elections. The President of the Republic of Korea, Yoon Suk-yeol, has congratulated presumptive President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. on his win in this year's historic elections. In a letter addressed to Marcos dated May 15, President Yoon said under Marcos' leadership, the Philippines will continue on its path of stability and prosperity. He also said the Philippines has been Korea's long-standing partner with the longest history of diplomatic relations among members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and also a key partner in Korea-ASEAN relations. He also took note of the Philippines' historic participation in the Korean War in the 1950s. On Saturday, Acting Commission on Election spokesperson John Rex Laudianco said the canvassing of votes for the president and vice presidential candidates will be completed once Congress resumes session on May 23. Based on partial and unofficial results from the COMELEC on Monday, Marcos retains his lead in the presidential election with 31,104,175 votes, with Leni Robredo trailing at 14,822,051 votes. Meanwhile, the Department of Health on Saturday said it is premature to declare a local transmission of the BA2.12.1 Omicron subvariant in the Philippines without enough evidence. Now, 2 local cases were detected in the National Capital Region and 12 in Puerto Princesa City, Palawan in April. The 2 NCR cases are relatives who traveled to a province to get vaccinated and have no history of travel abroad.
It's too early time for us to say that there is local transmission. Kailangan po natin ng enough evidence para po maipakita natin at ma-analyze natin kung talagang meron na tayong local transmission. Ito pong ating patuloy na pag-iingat, patuloy na pagpapakuna, at saka syempre yung ating surveillance system na maayos ang kailangan natin maihanda sa ngayon para po hindi na natin makitang kumalat pa at tumaas sa mga kaso. The best way to go would be, ina-advise natin ating mga kababayan, receive your boosters if you are eligible so that you can get adequate protection.
Now, Yusek Vergere also clarified that the World Health Organization has yet to classify BA 2.12.1 as a variant of concern or interest, but reminded the public just the same to remain vigilant. Citing initial studies, she said the subvariant is 23 to 27% more transmissible than the original Omicron variant. She also said the detection of 14 BA 2.12.1 cases did not cause any significant increase in the number of cases in NCR and has not yet translated into an increased transmission in hospitals. In today's other news, Kim Jong-un slammed North Korea's pandemic response and ordered the army to help distribute medicine. According to state media today, as the country said, 50 people had died since first reporting an outbreak of COVID-19. In a sign of how serious the situation may be, Leader Kim strongly criticized healthcare officials for what he called a botched response to epidemic prevention, specifically a failure to keep pharmacies open 24/7 to distribute medicine. He also ordered the army to get to work on immediately stabilizing the supply of medicines in Pyongyang. Kim, who visited pharmacies to inspect firsthand, strongly criticized the cabinet and the public health sector for their irresponsible work attitude, according to KCNA. He also criticized lapses in official legal oversight, flagging several negative phenomena in the nationwide handling and sale of medicines. North Korea has previously turned down offers of COVID vaccines from China and the World Health Organization's COVAX scheme, but both Beijing and Seoul have issued fresh offers of aid since the outbreak was announced. But Kim has previously said the country will actively learn from China's pandemic management strategy. North Korea has one of the world's worst healthcare systems, with poorly equipped hospitals, few intensive care units, and no COVID treatment drugs or mass testing ability, according to experts. The Philippine government, through the Department of Foreign Affairs, on Sunday expressed its sympathy to the United Arab Emirates, or UAE, after the passing of President Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan on Friday. Khalifa, rarely seen in public in recent years because of health issues, was 73. His brother and UAE's de facto leader, 61-year-old Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, was elected president the following day by the Federal Supreme Court Council. During his 18 years as president, Sheikh Khalifa steered UAE with wisdom and tolerance towards becoming a global economic powerhouse, according to the Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs. Jocelyn Quintana, Philippine ambassador to the UAE, likewise issued a statement on Saturday expressing heartfelt gratitude for what His Highness Sheikh Khalifa has done as the highest leader and great friend of many nations during his illustrious lifetime. The two nations have close ties, as over 800,000 Filipino workers are in UAE, one of the top remittance sources of the Philippines, and both have expressed pursuing the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or CEPA, which will be the platform to reach out to the vast market of the Middle East, including the Gulf Cooperation Council. Dubai's 16-story Burj Khalifa, currently the world's tallest building at over 828 meters, or 2,716.5 feet, is named after the late ruler. And we have more news for you. ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Mobile Legends!
That I was born for you, and that you were born for me, and in this random world.
Born for You, I co-wrote that as well with a lyricist called David Zippel. I had the music for Born for You that I had used for a cartoon movie. And the director didn't think that the song was right for the movie, so I wrote a different song for the movie. I got with David and I said, let's write something to this melody. And he wrote Born for You as a lyric. It was absolutely gorgeous. So it melted together so beautifully.
Buong pamilya, pati ang barkada. Kuya, ang inyong aso, pati inyong mga pusa. Magsama-sama kumain.
Ang inyong pinakabagong ganso.
Dito sa Net25.
Walang iba kundi ang
Vision TV!
Ang morning show na always nagbibigay ng ngiti at saya sa bawat kada all over the world. Tara na't ma-inspire at ma-amaze sa kwento ng mga bawat kada na nagwagi sa anumang hamon at pagsubok ng buhay. Itago na mga remote control at tumambay lang dito sa paborito niyong barkada sa umaga, ang Kada Umaga! Dahil kayo ang bida dito.
Welcome back. Reigning world champion Carlos Yulo scored 2 more steering triumphs Sunday, leading an 8 gold medal haul as the Philippines jostled with Thailand for second overall in the 31st Vietnam Southeast Asian Games. Returning to the Quan Hoa Sports Palace, where he was crowned the all-around champion last Friday, Yulo, 22, topped the floor exercise, the event where he emerged as world champion in 2019 and followed up his electrifying performance by scoring an impressive victory in the rings. Gymnastics proved to be a gold mine as Phil-American Alea Finnegan added the women's vault gold to Team Philippines' harvest, scoring her second victory after leading the women's squad to the team title last Saturday on top of a silver in the women's all-around. Also scoring crucial gold medal wins were Kim Mangrombang, who added the women's duathlon title to her victory in the triathlon last Saturday, wushu practitioners Agatha Wong and Arnel Mandal, William Morrison in the shot put, and the dance sport tandem of Stephanie Sabalo de Leon and Michael Angelo Marquez in the Latin dance. The 8 gold haul, which matched the team's output last Saturday, jacked up the country's total to 20, the same output of Thailand so far, but the Filipinos had more silver medals. And Europe Day coincided with this year's national elections in the country, celebrating a day early. The delegation of the European Union in the Philippines lit up the Rizal Monument in the colors of the EU flag, blue and yellow. The National Parks Development Committee joined the European Union delegation in the country in celebrating Europe Day. An official said the occasion allowed them to recall how Rizal Park is connected to Europe.
And humble to light with European colors the monument dedicated to the Philippines' national hero, Jose Rizal, this evening for the first time. Against the backdrop of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, Europe Day reminds us that peace is at the core of the European integration project, a value that we share with the Philippines.
There's a very special fountain here where Jose Rizal used to drink from when he was an assistant ophthalmologist at an eye clinic in Heidelberg, Germany. Rizal was a boarder in the university town of Wilhelmsfeld, where he finished writing his novel, Noli Me Tangere. Rizal's impact has been felt around the world, and the 6 monuments to Rizal in Europe are testament to that. One of them stands in Wilhelmsfeld, where on June 19 every year, the Filipino and German communities commemorate his birthday by laying a wreath at his statue.
To be celebrating with our Filipino friends the foundation of the European Union, which coincides this year with the election in the Philippines. That's why we have the celebration one day before. But we are so happy to be here. And there is so much to celebrate in Rizal Park, all the connections with Europe. And it's a wonderful symbol of the bond between the Philippines and the European Union. We will be observing with great interest the electoral process in the Philippines, and we are ready to work with whoever the Filipino decides to elect tomorrow.
Europe Day is held on May 9 every year to celebrate peace and unity in Europe, and the date marks the anniversary of the historic Schuman Declaration that set out the idea for a new form of political cooperation in Europe, which would make war between Europe's nations unthinkable. Now, this declaration led to the establishment of the European Communities, now the European Union, a union of 27 European countries founded on the values of respect for human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and respect for human rights. And the President of the Republic of Korea, Yoon Sol, has congratulated presumptive President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. on his win in this year's historic elections. In a letter addressed to Marcos dated May 15, Yoon said under Marcos' leadership, the Philippines will continue on its path of stability and prosperity. He also said the Philippines has been Korea's long-standing partner with the longest historic relations with ASEAN. And we'll be back with more right after this break. Stay tuned.
Ito ang Net25 Primetime News. Matatag. Matapang. Matapat kasama sina Alex Santos, Emma Tiglao at Vic De Leon Lima. Mata ng Agila. Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 ng gabi sa Net25.
Imposible, imposible. Sa pelikula lang yan nangyayari.
Sobrang fan ako ni Casey simula X Factor days pa lang. Sobrang excited na excited ako. Actually, second pitch ko na tong Imposible. Yung first pitch ko, hindi ako nasatisfied. So, nagsulat ako ng bago. Ang laking accomplishment na sa akin na nakanta ni Casey yung sinulat ko. And to think na nag-hit siya tapos nanalo ng Song of the Year noong 2020 sa Awit Awards. Speechless lang ako. Ang cool din na nakasama si Shanty Dope sa track.
Isa pa! Isa pa! Iri pa! Isang malakas na iri na lang! Konti na lang! Iri pa! Iri!
Pamilya. Silang nagmulat sa atin paano magmahal.
I'm doing this all for you. Kasi
Mahal na mahal kita.
Mangarap,
Hello po! Patapos na po ako magluto.
lumaban,
Kilala akong isa sa may mga matigas na ulo sa Anyong Island. Nagkamali ka ng kinalaban.
bumangon.
Si Mama ay mahal na mahal ka.
Silang nagbibigay sa atin ng ngiti, inspirasyon, lakas ng loob, at pag-asa. Handog ng Net25 ang mga natatanging obra na nagpapatunay na ang mahalaga sa lahat ay pamilya. Mi Esperanza. Panalo o talo, it's you. Never twice. Palabra de Amor. Gabi-gabi sa Net25, prime time ng pamilya. Let's get together sa init ng summer.
A total lunar eclipse was seen in Los Angeles, where many Filipinos live. Let's take a look.
The umbra slowly crossing the moon, and we are still, about 10 minutes or so.
And that's it for today's broadcast. Thank you for joining us here on ASEAN in Focus, and we'll see you back tomorrow. Stay in the news. Thanks for joining us.
Napapansin ba ninyo, lumiliwanag ang mundo pag magkasama tayo? Life is so much sweeter, everything feels better. At tayong lahat ay together. Let's have fun together.
Let's play together.
Kumain, magluto, matuto together. Kumain together, hawak kamay together. We'll be there for each other. We're stronger together. Kaya tara na Pilipino. Let's get together. Let's all come alive. Kaya tara na Pilipino. Let's get together. Sa Net25. Sa Net25.
Let's stay together.
Let's sing together. Let's all work together. Let's travel together. Let's shop together. Mangarap together. We can fly higher when we are together. Kaya lahat ng Pilipino. Let's get together. Let's all come alive. Kaya lahat ng Pilipino. Let's get together. Sa Net25. Panalo tayo pag together. Walang talo pag